Hey, this is Michael Emery. Thanks for tuning into the Slow Baja. This podcast is powered by Tequila Fortaleza, handmade in small batches and hands down my favorite tequila. You know, I've long said it. Ask your doctor if Baja's right for you. Well, you got to check out the Adventures tab at slowbaja.com. The Slow Baja is from February 23rd to March 1st. It's a slow roll from the beautifully rustic Rancho La Bayota to stunning San Ignacio and back up to sunny San Felipe. We're going to have one full week to explore some of my favorite places and meet some of my favorite people. We're going to have 2 nights in San Ignacio, and everybody's going to get to go whale watching. You know, those gray whales in the San Ignacio Lagoon are noted for their curiosity and friendliness, so be prepared for them to get up close and check you out. And I'm proud to say I'm going to be doing a little giving back on this trip. My friend Matthew Schnitzer, the founder of Barbers for Baja, you know the great work they do sending kids to college. Well, he's on board, and we're excited to launch our new project delivering desperately needed baseball gear to teams and coaches up and down the peninsula. And we will make our first gear donations on the Slow Baja. You know, it's not the longest or the largest or the most miles. It's the slowest and the best miles, and hopefully the most smiles. Okay, for more information, check out the Slow Baja at slowbaja.com. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You can always reach me through the contact link at slowbaja.com. And remember, the Slow Baja is open to 4x4 vehicles of any age. Got a 2-wheel drive that you think you can make it? Well, let's talk. Once again, that's the Slow Baja, February 23rd through March 1st, 2024. Help me keep Baja slow on the Slow Baja. You know, I'm a minimalist when it comes to Baja travel, but the one thing I don't leave home without is a good old paper map. My favorite is the beautiful, and I mean beautiful, Baja Road and Recreation Atlas by Benchmark Maps. It's an oversized 72-page book. It's jammed with details. It brings the peninsula's rugged terrain into clear focus. Get yours at benchmarkmaps.com. In fact, get 2. One for your trip planning at home and one for your Baja rig. Hey, big news. Benchmark just released the 2nd edition of the Baja Road and Recreation Atlas. They are always striving to improve these maps, and they've added a bunch of new features, bunch of places of interest, including the Cheneth Legacy Lodge. It wasn't on the first printing of the map. It's there now. It's awesome. You can see it right there in Persaboo. Get your brand new 2nd edition of the Baja Road and Recreation Atlas from benchmarkmaps.com. And while you're at benchmarkmaps.com, you got to check out all their other atlases. I think they're up to 17 now, including British Columbia. They've got folding maps. They've got digital maps. They've got giant wall maps. My favorite, and I've got it up on my wall right here at Slow Baja HQ, is a 30-inch by 46-inch Baja wall map. It's so great to just look at one thing and see the entire peninsula there. I love it. Benchmarkmaps.com, Slow Baja approved. My heaping dose of gratitude today goes out to you, the Slow Baja listener. To you old-timers, thanks for staying with me. We're into year 4 now. Year 4? Jesus. And to you folks that just started listening, and Spotify said a bunch of you found Slow Baja last year, sincere thanks for jumping aboard. We covered a lot of ground in 2023, and making the leap to video, while it almost killed me, was huge. I feel incredibly fortunate to have had Kaiser shooting on my first 2 Baja trips of the year. That Johnny Johnson interview, if you haven't seen it, you got to watch it on YouTube. It's one of my all-time favorite Slow Baja conversations, and I got to say, I'm lucky to have it for posterity, so R.I.P. Johnny. Okay, today's show was recorded way back in February of last year, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to share it sooner, but you know, I try to keep a mix going on Slow Baja and not just feed you a steady stream of off-roading, and this show got bumped a couple of times. It just did, and listening to it today, nearly a year later, I got choked up. I did. You can feel how raw the emotions were when we recorded this. Dom and Chris, you know, 2 buddies on a motorcycle trip in Baja XL. Dom freely admits mistakes were made, and eventually one really came back to bite him. And Chris, he's just a dude. I mean, you know, I'm just going to get right into it. In his work life with the Navy, he did bomb disposal for the Navy SEALs in Afghanistan. He's been in some shit, excuse my language. And he had the ride of his life, doing his darndest to save Dom's life. And you know how the story ends because they were both sitting with me to tell the tale. But that said, it's a tale worth hearing. And honestly, there's nothing tall about this one. Chris and Dom, man, they're pretty self-effacing. They tell it like it is, or at least like it was. And well, enjoy this harrowing tale with Chris and Dom on the 2023 Baja XL today on Slow Baja.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
That's pretty nice, man. Chris, one more time, Chris.
My name's Chris Gardiner, and Dominic's my buddy here who I constantly have the problems with time and time again.
Awesome. All right. Hey, it's Slow Baja, and you can hear the dust and tequila on my breath. We are just back across the border from the Baja XL rally, and we've got some stories to share. I'm with Dominic O'Mahony. Say hello, Dominic, so they can hear your voice.
Hello, all.
We're at Chris's house here in San Diego, and it's pretty close to the airports. There may be some planes flying in, but we wanted to get this story right now while it's still raw. So, Chris, say hello.
Hello, Baja, Slow Baja. It's nice to be here.
Hey, so Dominic and I met on the Baja XL 2021, correct?
On a rainy day, remember that? Yeah, it was a freezing cold rainy day, the first day, in a very busy restaurant with that was very extremely overcrowded, and that was
during COVID.
Yeah, it was.
With singing.
Indeed, yeah, indeed.
So we're freezing because we've driven down this road in through rain and snow, and we've got an open vehicle, and we're freezing. And I see your bikes out front. I'm like, these guys know what to do. This guy is an experienced rider. We're going to come in this restaurant and get warm, and there's no room in the restaurant, and there's all this fun and fiesta going on and singing, and you guys were like in an ante room or a fenced-in porch, or
I think it was a fenced-in porch because well, like yourself, I think Misery loves company. We have all of our stuff exposed on the vehicle, so we have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, and
so we're cautious of that.
This is in a restaurant in Valley T, folks, Valle Trinidad, and I think I ended up helping myself to a cup of coffee, which nobody cared about, and we certainly weren't getting any attention. So we moseyed on down to the asaderia and ordered some tacos. And that just said something to me that this guy is tough. He's riding his motorcycle on this event with your friend that you had talked into it, Andy, if I recall.
Well, Andy hadn't ridden in 30 years. He came home one day to find his new wife had sold his motorcycle. But he's quite an adventurous guy. He's a triathlete and stuff. And at his birthday party, I convinced his wife to, if we promised to only ride off road, could he get a bike? And she'd had a few drinks and she agreed in front of witnesses. So 3 days later, we had the bike for him, and then I convinced him to do this, which he didn't want to do this time because he has an aversion to large portions of sand.
Gotcha. I think we call that you're a Baja influencer on motorcycles.
Indeed, yeah. So, pays well.
So set it up. You've had a number of bikes because I put you in touch with Kaiser, my podcast producer, to get him sorted on his bike for his first Baja trip. And you really did sort him out, and then he ended up in the car with me.
I rode street bikes for a number of years. When I moved to California, it was in the Great Recession, so I had a lot of spare time because I was a general contractor building restaurants in Chicago. Then they all sort of fell apart. So I did 10,000 miles in the first year and got sick of it, and then just started wondering where all these roads were going to go, all these dirt roads, and that's what got me into it. But my first foray was on a BMW F800 GS from here to Mike's Sky Ranch, and I Googled the night before, how do you ride on dirt? And it just essentially, the expression is, hit the gas, it'll save your ass.
Excuse me for laughing.
Yeah. So I got all the way up to Mike's Sky Ranch, first time on dirt, didn't fall. I thought, I've got this. And then on the way back, it was utter carnage. And then I realized how expensive BMWs in particular are to fix. And then that's when I became a pretty competent mechanic because I didn't want to pay anybody else to do it. So I've had 5 of those bikes. And then Chris here tricked me into riding his bike one day. And I said, after the last Baja XL, I broke my BMW. It couldn't handle the riding. So I thought, well, maybe I've progressed to the next level, and I bought the same bike as Chris has got, and then it destroyed me on this Baja XL.
And that's a KTM.
Yeah, right. KTM 1090 Adventure R.
Okay. Hey, Chris, say hello. Let's talk about. You've got some motorcycle experience.
I do. Yes, thanks. And hello, everybody at Slow Baja. I grew up riding dirt bikes, never racing or anything, just free riding recreationally, like Yamaha's, Hondas, and I rode a Johnny Campbell's XR650 forever until I met this guy in 2013. We did 5 days in Death Valley. They were all on GSs. I was on my XR. I had put some soft bags and a couple extra Rotopack cans just to have legs to keep up with these guys as far as fuel. And I realized, hey, this kind of adventure style riding is the kind of riding I want to do for the rest of my life. And I sold my 2 Japanese bikes, and I got a KTM adventure bike because I wanted the most off-road capable bike to get as close to what I used to do, but also be able to just jump on and go anywhere, any place. And I've been riding with Dom ever since.
And that's always an adventure.
And it's always an adventure. And I'll tell you, Dom is a great mechanic, and it's just a testament to how much his bike breaks. He's an experienced mechanic, and he's our go-to guy on the trail.
Bad rider, good mechanic.
Well, Dom, can you tell the listeners a little bit about the whole world of adventure bikes now? It's just exploded. It's like overlanding, but on bikes, right? Explain ADVs and adventure motorcycling and all that.
If you think of riding motorcycles in general, people who have an M license, I think it's about maybe 10 or 15% of the driving population are licensed to ride a motorcycle in the US. And then of that 10 or 15%, probably 10 or 50% can take a 500-pound bike off-road successfully. And a lot of guys think they can do it because they've ridden dirt bikes, but it's a whole different animal. But what it does, it's essentially the four-wheel drive or the Jeep or whatever you want of the motorcycle world. There's not a lot of vehicles that will take you on a 2,500 mile foray in some of the hardest terrain in the world and then drive you home at 80 miles an hour and pull in your garage. And for what I like about it, it's the ability to have everything that you need on the vehicle and go anywhere that your skill is capable of bringing you. And the type of person that is into that, just like going into Baja, on these forays in any vehicle, there's a very specific kind of person that can do that, and it leads to them being quite interesting typically. So it's a win-win, right?
Present company.
They don't always have large amounts of tequila, but sometimes you don't need that.
Yeah, and Chris, I'm just getting to know you, but we had a nice dinner at Austin, Ashley, and Hallie's house in San Juanico, and I'm sitting there next to you, and I can see immediately that you're a person of substance and seriousness. You don't say a lot, you look a lot, you take everything in, and then I hear that you're retired Navy and explosives EOD. Is that it?
Yes.
Just your explosive. What does that stand for? Give me the
so
definition.
EOD stands for explosive ordnance disposal.
Or everyone's divorced.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a joke, but it stands for everyone's divorced. It's because it's a tough life, and guys are gone a lot, and it's just really, really tough on families. So, in the military, it's pretty common to make light of serious things to cope.
Yeah, I don't know what you can talk about in the work you did in the past and the people you worked with in the past, but you spent a lot of years at this, correct?
Yes, I did. I was in the Navy 25 years. I was an EOD technician for 21 of those years. My first 4, I was an aircraft mechanic. But I was in EOD school training, learning to be a bomb technician when 9/11 happened. I got to my first unit January 2001 and was in Afghanistan that summer with SEAL Team 3. And then it was just deployment after that.
And the reason I bring that up is because I noticed it immediately. You're a thinker. You can see it. So that's gonna be important later in the story because there's a lot of stuff that went wrong here, and your skills and your thought and thinking this through is probably what saved Dom's bacon. And I think we just need to start getting into that story now. So you're on the Baja XL. And Dom is a maniac, and you had some problems. So Dom, pick up the first problem. You lost your luggage. Well, you lost your stuff. It burned up.
The first problem was the rider. That we think we've analysed this post race, and we think it starts with the rider not being prepared. But yeah, I had to work the day of leaving a job that needed to be completed. I had to work, so I was late leaving, and then rush. But essentially, that the fire thing was the sleeping bag got burnt up on my exhaust and ignited, and then burnt all of my luggage on the back of the bike, which is all my sleeping stuff and all my clothing. But the kind of funny start of it was I drove by a guy on the highway doing about...
Let's get to the funny part.
Right? Yeah.
Let's get to the funny.
The funny part was I drove by a guy on the highway just before the turn off to the first campsite. It was about 11:30 at night. Empty road, clear road. So I put my high beams on, overtook him on this old Baja truck, beat up truck, and he starts flashing me. I thought, it's a bit rude. What's his problem there? Because I'm overtaking him. So I ignored it, of course, as you do, and then just went a mile ahead, and then turned left onto the dirt, and then I see him come screeching around in front of me. I thought, oh, this doesn't look good. But then I realized there's a car behind me because I can see lights behind me. So I thought there was two of them trying to jump me or something. But I thought there's always a way to talk your way out of most things, I find. But then I look over my right shoulder and there's 6-foot flames behind me with all my luggage on fire. So the guy, as I rode by him, my bike was on fire. That's what he's flashing me for. But I thought this guy's going to get he's going to get beers on this for the rest of his life on this story, because or else no one's going to believe him. So I literally panicked because my old bikes have always had the fuel tank on the back. I thought, oh my God, the bike's going to go. So I kicked the bike over in the sand, and then you think you're not all suave, but you go into a full-on panic. Trying to pat it with my gloves, and it melted my gloves. Of course, it's all burning plastic. And then managed to cut it off the bike and then just pulled it all off into the dirt. But it was $600 or $700 worth of equipment and gear and riding suits and things. So that was the start of it. And then I arrived proceeded to go on because I got 10 days off from the wife and kids. I'm not going to waste that for no money. So when I got to the campsite,
hashtag Baja Addict.
Oh, totally. Right yeah. So that was
carry on.
That was the first night. But in the morning though, when I pulled out of my tent with a tiny little blanket on me, freezing cold, I look at my front fork and all the oil's leaked out of it. I thought, that's not a good start either, is it? And then that was the catalyst that led to our demise, as it were. So it was essentially there was no compression, so the tire was taking all the hits, and we really, really, really pushed the bikes hard this trip. I mean, we were laughing to ourselves how crazy we were driving, So that was the issue. The tire exploded on the third day, was it?
Yeah, I think it was. Well, you got the hole in the tubeless tire first, remember?
Yeah, and then we
attempted to, and we
plugged it like you would a car tire. Plugged it, didn't hold. Put a tube in it, that burst.
Can I back up on that? The plug didn't hold because Dom and I were riding so hard we think it threw the plug out.
Yeah.
I mean, we were
because if you hit it hard enough, it'll double the pressure on the tire. You see, so it just kept bursting and bursting and bursting. But
you got the
exactly. It was more like a bullet going out with that speed. So that was it was a sort of a progression all the way through it, and we got it patched professionally a couple of times, and then we thought, we're good now. But probably the one day the day I met you guys on the road to San Ignacio, that was a 5-hour delay maybe, because we fixed it twice, changed the flat, put it back on, moved forward, and then that was 2 hours wasted. And Chris said, look, we'd take the wheel back. So he rode back again with my 60-pound wheel on the back of his bike all the way to
about 40 miles.
Yeah, to San Juanico.
San Juanico. So yeah, we saw you there on the dirt road heading north out of San Juanico, and we spent, I don't know, probably an hour and a half with you, and you're pretty nonplussed about it all. Yeah. And we did see Chris on the ride. He was heading south. We were heading north, but you were right behind a big Raptor, some truck that was moving very quickly. And I came over a little rise, and that truck was using much of the road. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, that's not something I had anticipated, that I could meet somebody in a head-on and a blind rise. I didn't see any dust or anything.
Did you spill your martini?
Well, no, we're not drinking and driving in slow Baja, for the record, folks. But no, we weren't. And then you were right behind the guy. And Christopher said, I acknowledged that I saw a motorcycle, and it looked like a KTM. And Kaiser said, hey, that's Chris, and he's got Dom's tire on the back. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh crap. Well, we're going to find Dom here soon, I'm sure. And you were out there full sun on a wide open dirt road, but not a highly traveled road. There's, I saw a guy on a horse out there last trip, and that was the only guy I saw the whole time. So
after there were three or four vehicles past us. Well, the Marines of course passed us, but
Team Great Scott, 2 Scots and an FJ80 out of Idaho, I think.
Yeah, so they passed us and then stopped to help, and then brilliant guys, absolutely brilliant guys. And then there was, I think, 1 or 2 other people, like groups of people going by, and then you guys came along. But you stopped, had a nice little chat for about an hour or so, and then Chris came back. I suppose about an hour and a half after you left, Chris came back with the wheel, and then off we went.
For me on that one, that wasn't as much of a risk as far as my concern, because we had traveled that 40 miles. I knew what that road was like. We had plenty of daylight left. Yeah. So to me, that wasn't that was comfortable. That was an acceptable trip to leave Dom.
Yeah, and you knew you were going to find a tire repair
knew there was
guy.
A tire shop.
Yeah, you knew you were going to find a tire repair guy and fuel, right? Which you do have to buy from Los Chinero. You go see Aaron over there. Yeah. I was really upset he wasn't wearing my Slow Baja hat when I rolled in. But yeah, so you got back as rapidly as possible. And Dom, you looked like you were not worried when we saw you. And we hung around a bit, and then we got up the road. And what happened next?
Chris came back, plugged up the wheel, because I think one of the beauty of the great things about the Baja XL in particular, and is the best part is getting to the camp. The days are very, very long if you hit all your marks and you don't have any mechanicals. But the best part for me is always meeting the people at the camp, because you know, that's how we met them. The Marines, actually, ironically, we met on the road. But the best part, I think, is spending time at camp with people. And then everyone's got a great story. I haven't found a person there that I didn't really enjoy hanging out with. You know, usually there's people who are 50-50 on, but they're all great people that do that kind of activity. So that, for me, the only bummer was not being able to spend more time and meet more of these people but I was lucky enough to meet great people the last time, because it was more of when it got shut down by the authorities, it made it more risky.
2021, yeah.
Yeah, so we had really good friends from that before, but we met the Marines this time because of the breakdown, which is, I guess, the irony. But we, put the tire back on. We stopped into San Ignacio, had some food there in that restaurant that had the raccoon last time when I was here. The raccoon's gone, and there's some sort of odd-looking New Zealander there who's right out of Central Casting was the server. But we ate there, and we got to the camp late, and then bumped into the Marines again with a big cheer. Whee! And we pulled in. And then we thought that would be the end of it, really. We loaded up on patches. We went to 3 different places to buy, good patch kits for the tube in case, because I knew that what that road was going to be that day, the following day. It was a pretty long, arduous ride. And then,
patches only.
No tubes. Yeah, no tubes in Baja,
which I think was a mistake.
Yeah, lots of tires but no tubes, because all the vehicle tires are tubeless. But I did it with Andy last time, and Andy did the first part of it was awful for Andy because he didn't like the sand, but the second part of it was more technical because he was a mountain bike rider, so he's pretty good on that part of it. And I don't remember the second part being as bad as the first part. And the first part, I thought, it was really good on this bike. We really enjoyed it. A couple of turnarounds because the trails washed out. But then, of course, when that happened, you realize where you are. You think you're 70 miles either direction from anything, so you're not going to hike out. So when you give somebody, when you say, listen, there's very few people in the world that you can think, right, my ass is in your hands, as it were. That can I trust this person to A, complete the task, and B, come back as well, and within a reasonable time frame. And I thought, Chris and I had beers chatting about this. I thought there's not a lot of people I would trust to do that, and he's one of 2 I think that I would do that with. So it's critically important to choose the right person, I think, that you do anything with, right? So like as I say, that you told me that guy that disappeared and gave his friend 100 pesos for a bus ticket. Yeah. So it happens, right? Yeah. So, but it was pretty hairy, in fairness. I mean, my water situation was getting pretty bleak by the time he got back a day later. Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll be right back with Dominic O'Mahony and Chris Gardiner. We'll get the rest of the story of the extended stay, your extended stay in the Baja wilderness. So we'll be right back. Here at Slow Baja, we can't wait to drive our old Land Cruiser south of the border. And when we go, we'll be going with Baja Bound Insurance. Their website's fast and easy to use. Check them out at bajabound.com. That's bajabound.com, serving Mexico travelers since 1994. Big thanks to my new sponsor, Nomad Wheels. They stepped up and sponsored the Slow Baja Safari class at the Nora Mexican 1000, and I don't know if you've seen the pictures, but Slow Baja is running a set of 501 convoys in utility gray, and they look pretty damn sharp. They were a little shiny, I will admit that. They were a little shiny when I got them installed at Basil's garage just before the Nora Mexican 1000, but after, 3,800 miles of Baja dirt, they look perfect. They really do. Nomad
nomadwheels.com. That's right, check them out. Reflecting a minimalist approach to off-road travel, nomadwheels.com. Hey, we're back. We're having some laughs, talking about funny stuff with Chris Gardiner and Dominic O'Mahony, and the story gets kind of serious here. And so you've fixed from when we saw you in San Juanico. You're on the dirt road out of San Juanico to San Ignacio. You've had a meal. You've bought some tire patch kits in San Ignacio, and there's not a lot of places to buy this kind of stuff. So what are you doing? Where are you going? And
Guerrero Negro.
Okay.
Went to like an oil place.
Right.
Once they figured out what the Spanish was for tire patch, she's like, oh yeah, but they're all small bicycle ones. So I went to a proper car place that had my tire patch last time I was there, and then they gave me these sort of two inch diameter, the circular patches. So they'll be big enough. So we had three different kits. We thought we'll be good, we can handle anything, but clearly that wasn't the case. So when we're about,
have you heard of Glue Tread, the new tire patch kit? I was giving them out, but
you were?
Unfortunately, I didn't see you at the start.
Oh my Lord!
Nope.
Yeah,
Yep.
and had I known you needed a tire patch kit, I had one in the car. I didn't have any water for you or anything.
Is it the one that you stick on the outside of the tire?
Yeah.
I had one of those, but it didn't hold.
Oh, that's too bad.
Because there's too much pressure on the inner tube, I think. But I think we were about maybe 60 miles into that trail, and before when it was a fairly flat ground, but then it turns into something entirely different going back to the camp. But I remember that being faster and easier than the trail that we came along the beach, because Andy that I was riding with didn't like the sand at the time, so it was quite a long ride. But that was, for us, it was about 45 minutes and we were through it. And then I thought, well, it would be great, because the camp, that final camp at Catavina, is a lovely camp. I really wanted to make it there.
Yeah, spectacular.
And I didn't know
Except
the rain
in
was
the rain.
coming. I had no idea the rain was coming.
Nobody.
You had your own problems.
Yeah.
Looking at weather forecasts.
So we stopped. We had again. The Marines came, drove by us again, helped us pump up the tire. I patched the tire, put it on. They had a really good compressor on their vehicle, pumped it up, and it was holding fine. So off they went on the merry way. Put it on the bike. Kilometer later, bang, it goes again. And it was just the tear in the tire was in the inner tube was just too big to patch it, I guess. So I changed it maybe 10 times over the course of 24 hours.
Wow.
And at 5 o'clock, that was at 12 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, Chris says, listen, there's only one way to go here, and that's go out and there's a spare inner tube that Alison's bike, her generator on the bike crapped out. So her bike was sitting there with the same tube that I needed. So the plan was for Chris to go back, get that tube, and then come back as soon as possible, or as a backup plan, take the wheel off his bike and bring that back to mine, and then which is what we ended up doing
in a car.
Yeah. So like you
In a
were.
car.
Come back in a four-wheeled vehicle.
Well,
Yeah.
that was we didn't know that was going to happen yet. We're like, I'm sitting there watching Dom patch.
Hang on for a second here. Hang on. Let me just ask you to one more time go through your background and the sort of mental checklists that you go through in exposing yourself to danger and at your previous employment.
Okay.
That
yeah,
you have
so
all your fingers and toes.
I do.
I know she had some
unfortunately.
foot surgery there, but probably wasn't related to work.
Motorcycles, actually.
Okay, so you've got some protocols that normally go through your mind for your 25 years of service, and
Right,
thank you for that. But just talk a little bit about, you're going to make a decision here where Dom's going to stay and you're going to go.
Right. So that was definitely
in the dark.
It was definitely a tough decision. I like to have redundancies, so we have backup plans, and we had backup plans, but we had used them all. We had blown all the tires. No more tubes. We had patched it and continued on as normal, and then tried to repatch a patch, pull old patches off, and we had one patch left, and it was about 5 o'clock, and I was just like, this is not gonna work. It's just not gonna work, and I need to go get assistance for us. And in my gut, I really didn't want to leave Dom, because we did get an in-reach out to our friend Matt Walther, and it was a very long communication chain to get it back around to. Eventually, I think it got to you guys and a few other people, but I just wasn't confident that we were going to get rescued or get the equipment, really, because I knew, like Dom said, Allison had a tube that we could use, but she's only going to be at the camp for so long. I needed what I needed was going to be there, but for a small period of time.
A small window, yeah.
For a small window.
Had to,
if that wasn't there, then we were back to, I don't know where to get a tube. So yeah, I made a decision to leave Dom, even though it was difficult. I left him water, food, a stove, and some extra warm, a bag to sleep in.
Bag, yeah.
And I took his GPS and mine because his had the tracks on it from last year that got me out. And but on that previous trip back to fix his tire, it had gone out on me, and I was having mechanic issues with it, so I wasn't trusting it. So that also added to my anxiety about going to a place I hadn't been yet. Unlike the other, I didn't know what lie ahead. Dom here was with his keep calm, carry on attitude, is very, very compelling way. He was like, "Oh, it's easy, mate." So yeah, I set out. I had about 20 minutes of light, and it was very flat beachfront road until you turn into the mountains. When you got into the mountains, it became very rocky. There was a lot of erosion that had happened since Dom had done that 2 years ago, and now it's dark. There were some hill climbs there that really tested me. I knew Dom I needed to get there so that I could get myself and Dom out. If I crashed, now I'm out separated from my partner who's also stranded. It just, that's a nightmare, right? And I was wrestling with this decision to leave those 4 hours. Like, was this right or wrong? Especially when I started hitting these hills that are just exposed softball, soccer ball sized boulders with erosion ruts
At
is
night.
12 inches more deep in this, Jeep wide trail. And at one point I know it's a cliff, but it's just black nothing.
Mm-hmm. And it is dark in Baja at night.
And it's dark. And even right now, I can even feel a little bit of anxiety thinking about it. And Mike, I don't know how I got up some of those hills. Something helped me, man. We went back the next day, and I'm like, I wouldn't want to ride that, even in the daytime. And I did fall on one hill, halfway on the ascent. And I remember thinking, like, I can't get up this hill, but I have to get up this hill. I picked the 500-pound bike up on the side of this hill. I just grabbed front brake. It's in gear. I start it, and I just get it. I just get it up that hill. And the second hill that really, and when I get up the hill, I'm just thinking, and I'm actually talking to myself. I'm alone in the dark, and I'm like, okay, you made it. It's behind you. And I'm like, I hope nothing that I can't handle is ahead of me.
Like rain.
And then it starts raining.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
And then it started raining.
It's
funny. It's funny now.
Just pile it on.
It wasn't.
Pile it on.
And this trail is just riddled with exposed, call them kickers or baby heads or whatever, but they're like softball size or sometimes soccer ball size rocks that are, half buried, quarter buried, three-quarter exposed. And you hit them. And in normal dry conditions, you hit them and you bounce over them. But in the rain, you bounce and slide. And it's just very, very, you're on a fine balance with these 500-pound bikes, with these motocross bikes that are 200 pounds. You can really lean and save yourself because you can just kick yourself up. But if you fall off your center of balance with these 500-pound bikes, you just have a very narrow margin of error there. So again, the second hill climb, which I didn't fall on, but I don't know how, because I started ascending that thing and it was so rocky and so rutted, and I started bouncing and getting a little whiskey throttle and over revving, and I bounced from the left side of this Jeep trail to the right side of this Jeep trail and back. I don't know how I made it, but I did. And it's raining, and and it's a couple hours, I think, of off-road. And I'm like, finally I'm on the road. But now it's really raining. It's raining sideways. And I've got 45, 50 miles of highway now in the rain. I mean, sideways. And it's blowing. Semi-trucks are going by me. At the most, I'd do maybe 40. But when the semis would come, I'd literally slow down to like 5 or less. I'm in second gear, just let them go by,
and just wear it.
And just
you're
wear
you're going to wear the air blast. You're going to wear the weather,
all of it,
and you're going to hope that you're not going to get run over.
And I have to have my visor up because I can't see. But
right.
And I remember having this little mental issue of like, with the visor down, it's hard to see, but I can see the reflectors on the road. And I know I'm on the road. I can see the line. But when I have to lift my visor, I can see how hard it truly is raining. And I'm like, I don't want to know this. I don't want to know how bad this is. But yeah, obviously I was soaked. I contemplated stopping, but I just can't. I just couldn't.
Yeah, you've got a narrow window to find Allison, who's hopefully in camp.
Who's hopefully in camp.
Has no communication from you to know that,
right.
Wait for these guys. They need your tube.
Right.
And so that's a gamble.
But, I'm also, on top of this, I'm also thinking, because we're traveling with a couple guys in an FJ. They were on a different track that day, but I'm expecting them to be at camp, and I'm going to get their help as well. But so I'm thinking that. But I get to camp and realize, okay, cool, Allison's bike's there, but our friends in the FJ are also having a major mechanical issue out there, and they're stuck. So they're no longer an option when I get to camp. Allison's bike is there, but Allison's not at camp. She's at the hotel.
Like the smart people.
Right. And the two Scots, who Dom calls the Marines, which they were.
Great Scott.
Great Scots.
Team Great Scott.
Absolutely.
Those guys welcomed me in like instantly. And I know I was wound very tight and shivering, freezing, soaking wet. I was so hyper focused on what was directly in front of me for 4+ however many hours it was. And they could immediately see that I needed like some help.
Right.
And they did just that. They welcomed me in. They fed me, threw hand warmers in my pockets. I slept in their tent. The three of us slept in their tent. So that was great. Those guys, they were on our team from the second I got there. The next morning went like clockwork. Our plan was, 1, find Allison. When I got to the hotel where she was at, I saw the car she was riding in, but there's 14, 15 doors. I'm like, right. It's 6 o'clock.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm going to start knocking on the door. So I just knock on the door closest to that truck. It's Allison.
Wow.
It's Allison.
Amazing.
6 o'clock. I didn't know you had a lie-in.
Yeah. Yeah. We're taking it easy. Not much to worry about. But this is Allison. And of course, we all know Allison. She's so helpful. And she gave us her permission, which we needed. She also gave me some spoons to get the wheel off because I left them all with Dom, even though our plan, I realized I needed those when I got there. But she gave me her tire irons and spoons. And the guys from Baja, the medic in the medic van, they helped me out too. We got the
John and Justin Strong.
John and Justin, yeah.
Yeah, John Clark and Justin Strong.
And Justin,
good guys.
Justin was also recognizing my level of stress, and he gave me some perspective to help me calm down. He told me to chill out, calm down, basically, which I appreciated because I was wound up tight. Because on top of this, my first adventure rally, I was like, it's over on the 26th. I'll be back that night to pick up my kids because I'm a single dad. And now I realize I'm not going to be home in time. So also no service. I can't get a message out to my family. I was stressed about that too.
Sure.
But I was able to get a message out.
And again, Chris, you're a guy who destroys bombs with the Navy SEALs in Afghanistan 20 years ago. I mean, like, you've done some stressful stuff.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I have no problem putting myself, assuming risk for myself, but like I'm his last line of defense, so to speak.
Right.
So I feel very heavy responsibility to get it done and get it done right.
So you got the wheel in the tire, and what came off of Allison's bike and went with you flying back with the Great Scots in their FJ80, which is kind of a slow vehicle, but I bet they might have motored on down the highway.
Yep, they got it done. So I got Allison's tube from her front tire, and then we got the Guatemalans to help me speak to the employees at the hotel to allow me to leave my bike there while we go rescue Dom, because I wanted to pull my wheel because we have the same bike. So now I have a redundancy again. We can either put the tube on or we can
put the wheel on. Yeah.
Which I talked to the Scots, and we've come to the conclusion that it made sense to just put my wheel on.
Sure.
Once we got there and let him ride it back, and then once we're back, they can go their own way, and Dom and I can work the tube, and which is exactly what happened. But we did ride in their trucks on that route that I rode out on, and seeing it in the daylight just reconfirmed to me, like, I mean, even in the daylight, I would look at that and be like, I don't want to do that because I'm probably gonna destroy my bike.
Yeah.
And
so Dom, you're out there for over 24 hours.
Well, I mean, I don't want to make it all about me, but I almost burnt my lips on my hot coffee while he was in the rain. So there's that. There's that to worry about. But the irony is, I read a great book called Jupiter's Travels a while ago about. I'm very into the philosophy of traveling by motorcycle and just what it does, and how I would never have met any of these people that we've met if we weren't on the bikes. If we were in a car, you'd never have met them. So I'm a great proponent of it. It just makes you. Humans are very empathetic by nature, and when you look vulnerable, it enables that empathy to come out. I've found, and I've never had anything but great experiences on bikes, especially when you're in trouble. But the opening line of that, the opening sort of scene of that book is when he's Ted Simon, who I've met, is in India in the 70s. 45-year-old, kind of middle-class English newspaper writer, never ridden bikes really before, but he runs out of petrol in India in the 1970s, and he's just casually leaning against a tree, because what he's learned around his travels is that somebody will always help you, no matter. And that's my that's kind of been my philosophy. It's always going to work out. You've just got to figure out how you're going to fix it. You're not going to starve. You're not going to die. But there's always a way to get out of it. But unless like I was kind of worried about Chris, because I thought it could have, if it rained, that train would have been that trail was a disaster. But my concern was how long he was taking. I thought, well, he's a good rider, so he would have been up and down and then be back by now. Even if he came back and says, "Hey, there's nothing we can do. Let's hike out," he would have come back. But I think Baja in general, what's good about it is Chris is a good example. Like he's been in some hairy situations for 25 years, but it's always meticulously planned. He's got second and third plans, that sort of stuff. But Baja doesn't allow that, and you've really got to just let the universe take you where it's going to take you. I think in Baja, and I think if you kind of learn to accept it, it's okay. And I think that's why it attracts a certain kind of people. I mean, it was still a fantastic experience, even though it was nothing but a massive dumpster fire from day one to
which
day
is
9.
what we dubbed him.
Yeah.
From day one. He's dumpster fire dog.
Yeah.
So it's not about me, and as I'm burning my mouth on some hot coffee at this little roadside cafe that we stopped in.
It's terrible.
And I see that they have a little sign that says Wi-Fi and tips. There's a little old canteen hand painted on the wall. It says Wi-Fi and tips. So I get on the guy's Wi-Fi, and my phone just explodes with problems.
Yeah.
We were just merrily tootling along, had no.
I'm glad I could ruin your day as well.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
And then like this message text thread just explodes.
It's lovely, isn't it?
And I'm trying to, and it took a long time for this guy to make the coffee. It was good old fashioned, find the water, put it in the pod, tell us 6 stories, boil the water, put the coffee in the sock, put the water through the sock, tell us more stories, try to sell us property, tell me all of his problems in the world. And I'm just like, scroll, Jesus, what the heck? Oh my God, what it? And now Christopher's engaging with the guy, bantering back and forth, having a good time, and I'm like, up. Who can I help? How can I get Edson at the ice cream shop? All this stuff, and the guy for whatever happened, some freak, maybe his metabolism, maybe his blood alcohol level, what have you, he gets angry at us and shuts off the Wi-Fi. And I'm flipping because, like, listen, there's an emergency happening here, and now I can't communicate. And so I offered it, 50 pesos for a minute, 5 minutes, 100 pesos, and he's not taking. Get out of here. Get out. So
Where was this?
I peel my sticker off his door as I'm going out, because
I'm taking my sticker and I'm leaving.
It is not Slow Baja
that's true.
approved. It is not Slow Baja approved. And so we drive back down the road 45 minutes in the direction of you to get back to the Hotel Catavina, and actually you go to the mini super and buy some Wi-Fi time and get back on the thread of what can we do. And I called your guy here in San Diego on FaceTime, because we had the Wi-Fi,
Matt,
to just cut out all the chatter,
yeah,
and see if there was actually somebody
I didn't know that. That's great. That's
going to get you, because we had issues, my own lack of modern navigational stuff. We had your coordinates, but I'm not a guy who can like plug that into my phone and make that stuff happen. And I learned how to do that as I was on Wi-Fi in the mini super. And we got a guy from Long Beach BMW that we had met the night before at.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
He plugged into his GS, and we'd met him the night before in San Ignacio. And so he plugs it into his GS, and I'm videotaping it as he's rolling through his instructions.
That's hilarious.
And then I find it in my benchmark Baja Road and Recreation Atlas. So we had you pretty well triangulated exactly where we were. Then I figured out how to get your exact location into my Google. And then it was like 3 hours and 15 minutes from here. And so once we had discussed with your guy in San Diego who's relaying your messages,
Yeah.
and that's another story for another time, but the guy who was handling the information distribution, then we had to figure out, is anybody coming inside of that 3 hour window? Is somebody going to solve this problem before we go tear-assing back to get you? And at this point, I'm super anxious, like you've experienced, but nothing to the level. And just as I was walking from the refrigerator with 2 cold gallons of water, a bunch of Cokes under my arms, and about to pile that up on the register and buy an armload of food. And we don't have a cooler or anything, so that's when the message came through that you guys were riding out.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's funny. I got on the Facebook this morning, and it was very heartwarming, really, because there's about 40 people on that chain.
Yeah.
And it was again, it's just the epitome of what this rally is about, and what that type of person is about anyway. I mean, if it's Bajas can be quite annoying, because if you stop to take a leak by the side of the road, or just you stretch your legs, people hit the brakes and say, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" Constantly.
I love that about it.
Yeah, we do that here. If you stop by the side of the road here, they'll call the police on you in California, but they treat you like a leper. The guy Matt Walther, is how I know Chris. How I met Matt Walther, this might be an edit, but how I met Matt Walther was about
Trigger warning.
About 10 years ago. I was actually more, about 11 years ago, when I got my first GS. There was a guy visiting on a road traveler from Canada, was driving out to Panama, so he ended up staying in my garage for like a week. So I took him to Rawhide. It's like an off-road. Jim Hyde is a guy. He teaches off-road riding skills for BMW. So Matt Walther and a Navy SEAL friend of his had just got back from deployment, and they were there giving these demonstrations on what to do when things goes wrong. And I just got one of these called the original Spot Connect, the satellite tracker. And so there's me and about BMW owners have got the most money out of any, except for me. Of course, I'm the broke one there. But there's all these basically rich middle-aged dudes in this tent, in all of these 2 special forces guys just got back from doing Lord knows what in the Middle East. So they were still in that kind of mentality. And then so they pulled out one of these Spot Connect devices, and they said, "We'll do this, you do that. Always keep these on your person." And I asked a question. I said, "Hey, I have a question. If I'm riding along and I hit the SOS button on the spot detection because I find a guy who's got a broken leg, then all of a sudden he jumps up and he says, 'I feel fine,' he drives off. Am I on the hook for that helicopter rescue? Who pays for it?" And he says to me, "What do you care? You've just saved his life." I said, "No, he's fine. He's ridden off. But am I still who pays for that service?" He said, "Are you telling me that you'd rather risk someone's life rather than pay pay for for a rescue that wasn't needed. I said, no, I'm not saying that at all. I said, I don't want to pay $50,000 if this guy rides off, and that's the answer I was looking at. And he just said, you know what? He essentially said to me, why don't you sit down and shut the F up, because you could have, you're the cause of that guy dying in front of like 50 people. It made me feel like a complete idiot. So then 3 weeks later, I'm on Craigslist looking for a half-used tire to do a trip down to Mike's Sky Ranch. I go knock on the guy's door in Imperial Beach. It's the same guy. I knock on his door. I'm like, oh my God, not this a-hole again. Ring the doorbell. He says, are you here for the chickens? I says, what? He goes, are you here for the chicken coop? I said, no, I'm here for your tire. So he goes, all right, come in. He's all, grumpy. He's a huge dude. So he brings me inside, and he's got the old GS that you had, the old R100. So brings me inside. I thought, oh, good, he hasn't recognized me. Just get the tire and get out of here. And he said, hey, man, because you want a coffee? I said, oh, I'll have a coffee. So we started chatting about bikes and getting along really well and stuff. And he said, you want another coffee? I said, I'll take another one. And then I said, I do know you, by the way. He goes, yeah, you look familiar. I said, I'm the guy that you told to shut the F up and sit down. And he said, oh, sorry, but we've been best friends ever since. But ironically, he was the one that was doing all of this the SATCOM for us. That's how I met this guy.
Awesome.
But little edit, so.
No, awesome. And so you were on to the we got to wrap this up. You were on to the problem of Baja, that you might be just taking a roadside pee break.
Yeah.
And people are going to stop and say, everything okay?
Yeah.
And it, I think it happens to me just because I'm in this iconic old vehicle.
Because you look destitute.
Yeah, with the pith helmet and the name of the vehicle on the door, and people want to say, hey, everything all right, Slow Baja? And I'm like, oh, just taking a break here,
Yeah.
But it really is like that. But when we saw you on the road in San Juanico, I always figured that I'm the last guy. We're traveling the slowest.
Yeah.
We're leaving the latest.
That's true.
We're doing that we'd gone and done a podcast with the folks who hosted us for dinner the night before. So I figured there's nobody behind us. So whenever I see somebody come from behind me when I'm pulled over, it blows my mind. So when you're out there and we're 3 hours away, I'm figuring that there's pretty much nobody behind us for sure.
There was one vehicle past me in the whole 24 hours I was there, and it was about 15 minutes before the Chris and the US Marines showed up. Amazing. Yeah. But yeah, there was no one there at all.
Well, let's wrap it up. You spent more than 24 hours out in the wilderness. Chris went through a harrowing night where he has no idea how he got up these hills in the night and rode through sleeting rain, and it was awful. I was worried about where I was going to park. It was raining so hard because I didn't want to have Lake Baja in the back of my open truck. How soon are you guys going back?
Tomorrow, if I could. Yeah. Actually, well, we're going to go back with the lessons we've learned, and
we've definitely learned some lessons. Like, we could have planned better gear. I think we'll plan better gear next time. But the biggest takeaway for me is, when it's time to shut it down, when you're on your last, redundant, backup plan, it's not time to keep carrying on and
you could have gone on the highway,
bombing down.
Chris is the fun police. He hits it when I'm happy.
Our ride was over, but we were just kind of overwhelmed with the fun and the excitement of bombing down these roads, and we lost sight of that, Yeah,
and you said to me earlier before we started rolling here, when we were waiting for Dominic to show up, you said, you're always in a team in the military. You're always in a team. You're always in a team. There's always a team there. I said, it's only in the movies that the guy's out there by himself, getting the job done, carrying the weight of the world on his back. And you both had that experience on this trip. And Dominic, you jumped in immediately and said, yeah, I'm ready to go back tomorrow if I could.
Oh, yeah.
Chris, I cut you off. So finish that thought.
That thought, that actually comes from a conversation I had with the Scots, because, being Marines, Scott said, we all, look at ourselves as tough guys and can do anything. But in the military, you're always on a team. You have standard operating procedures. You have structure. You know what to do if this happens, if that happens. You're never truly alone, and that's it. Rarely, and it's never by design. So when I found myself in that situation, it was just the first time I really had someone else's life in my hands. I felt, and like I said, I don't know how I did that. I did it. I just got it done.
Yeah. Well, thankfully
Hoorah.
you did. thankfully you did. And Dominic, you'd go back tomorrow.
Oh, I would,
Let's wrap it up for us.
I definitely would. Well, unless, if you haven't experienced Baja, then you just don't get it. I think there's so much to do, and I think that what's annoying me now is that we didn't finish that road, of course, which is the plan is, some of us did, yeah. Yeah, but in the dark it doesn't count, Chris, you can't see it. But that's what I want to do, is go back and finish that road. That's my big takeaway from this. But I'm going to get the bike ready first and fix it.
Yeah, it sounds like you need some kit.
I do.
Yeah,
that's a fun part.
Any KTM dealers out there willing to donate parts, I will gladly take them.
You can reach Dominic through Slow Baja, KTM folks through Slow Baja. Yeah, there's we had Taco Moto at our hotel the night before we knew all the problems. Nice. So I tried to reach him from the road. He was down there with a KTM-led ride.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to him when you were out there in the bush. But and so satellite communications. Last thing, the In-Reach saved your bacon to some degree, yeah.
This In-Reach, the two things saved my bacon actually. Both bought at the Overland Expo, funnily enough. One was about 10 years. I bought the original In-Reach from DeLorme. Didn't have a battery, but Patrick had a spare. Sorry, didn't have a charger, but Patrick had a spare charger. So I only turned it on that morning, ironically. And the other one was in 2021. I met this smooth talking ex-Marine guy who lives in Oceanside. They have a company that make these sort of thermal, semi-waterproof thermal shields that you put over your tent to keep your tent cool. But it was $200, which is it's a lot for a small piece of kit that I'd never used it. But I wrapped that around my camp chair, my REI camp chair, which is another big luxury, and then that kept the rain off me. And then of course the In-Reach was, my wives, they worry constantly when you're doing these ridiculous, masculine adventures. But keeping her made her feel a lot better, and without me relaying everything to Matt, and then luckily I had your numbers. I gave him all the numbers of all the people I had on the BajaXL, and it was like a snowball from there, I guess. So, but it was good.
Well, we are all worried about you.
I appreciate it.
And I do appreciate that.
And that's the spirit of Baja.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to leave it right there. We've got a lot of miles to make today in an old truck that's not running all that well, and this was a terrific opportunity to get that story, and we're all going to have a beer over this another time in another place in Baja, and we'll be laughing.
Yes, indeed.
We'll be laughing.
Another Baja story.
When it's not so raw.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. Well, how about that one? Yeah, that was a harrowing tale, and I'm glad that everybody was there at the end to tell me on Slow Baja all about it. Chris and Dom, if you got fired up about a Baja trip on your ADV bike, well, you can join us. You can join them. They're going to be leading the motorcycle side on the Slow Baja, February 23rd through March 1st, Tecate down to San Ignacio, a couple of nights in San Ignacio. We're going to do some whale watching down there, and then we're going to work our way back up and have a little beach fiesta, a little leap year beach fiesta in San Felipe. And if that sounds like fun, you better hit me up quick. I've got a couple of slots for bikes. Hit me up on that contact button or reach out via Instagram or Facebook, and we can talk about getting you on the Slow Baja. If you like what I'm doing, please take a second, share the show, rate the show, drop a taco in the tank. That is actually the most helpful thing. If you got tacos jingling around in your pocket after the holidays here, if you still got a taco in your pocket, drop one in the tank, por favor. And if you don't, I get it. You can go to Spotify, you can go to Apple Podcasts, you can drop a 5-star, you can say something nice, you can text the show, you can share the show, you can send it on WhatsApp to a friend, and that is helpful as well. Got stickers in the shop. I've got hats in the shop. There's some large sweatshirts, some XXLs and XLs. If you're thinking it's getting a little chilly and you need a sweatshirt, get on that site, slowbaja.com/shop, and help me out. Spread the word. Wear some merch. I've been getting some messages. People were wearing their Slow Baja swag over the holidays, and it's a conversation starter. If you're in a grocery store or a restaurant down in Baja or even in San Diego, somebody's going to see that Slow Baja hat or that Slow Baja shirt and strike up a conversation. So be ready for that. All right. Well, Mary McGee, Slow Baja alum, now an Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Famer. She had a pal, Steve McQueen. She went to a New Year's Eve party back in '62, met this cool cat, Steve McQueen. He said, "You got to get off your pansy road racer, Mary. You got to come out to the desert and ride with me." And she did. And she got pretty dang good at it. But her friend Steve, he loved desert. He loved Baja. And he said, Baja is life. Anything that happens before or after is just waiting. People always ask me, what's the best modification that I've ever made to slow Baja? Without a doubt, it's my Shieldman seats. Toby at Shieldman USA could not be easier to work with. He recommended a Vario F for me and a Vario F XXL for my navigator Ted, as Ted's kind of a big guy. And Toby was absolutely right. The seats are great and they fit both of us perfectly. And let me tell you, after driving around Baja for over a year on these seats, I could not be happier. Shieldman, slow Baja approved. Learn more and get yours at shieldman.com.